Last hour, Melanie took us inside the kitchen to show us how roaches can live inside the refrigerator at your favorite restaurant.
Also, how other violations can easily happen if workers made careless mistakes. She is back to show us why these violations aren't just disgusting, but they can also make people who eat at these restaurants sick, Mel.
Hey, Bruce and Jen. So we are here at Mojo number 4 in Avondale. They've let us inside the kitchen to just take a look at some of the mistakes that restaurant owners and managers make. You know, this is the cooler, so you see the breath. It is cold in here, and a lot of mistakes can happen inside of here. So I want to bring in Jessica Tyree. She is a former restaurant inspector. Now she owns a business called Restaurants Compliance Solutions, where she comes in and checks restaurants, does kind of like a surprise inspection to make sure they're in compliance before the state comes in. All right, so I see a lot. Storage issues.
There's a lot going on in a cooler, yes. So one of the things that we look at is storage, how food is stored. It has to be stored in the correct order so that there's not cross-contamination. This is the same as people do in their own homes as well, in their own refrigerators. So we look at how the food is stored. We obviously look at temperatures inside the cooler. And another big thing that we look at are date labels on food.
So here's one. It's interesting because you can get away with things in your house that restaurant owners certainly can't. So while this has a date on it that you may keep a little longer at home, in a restaurant, what are the rules?
So in a restaurant, anything that is ready to eat and that is perishable has a 7-day shelf life. So anything, as soon as you open it, they have to have a date label on it so that when an inspector comes in, and for themselves as well, that they know when it was open, so they know when it has to be thrown away if there's any left.
And we talk about the order in which things are placed. Tom, I don't know if you can see this, but down here there's all this seafood. Sometimes meat will be down below. Now, there would be an issue if this cheese was underneath here, because that's where the contamination can happen, and that really potentially could get someone sick. Why is there that risk?
Because if the cheese is below the seafood, so with the seafood, you have to cook it to a certain temperature, because if there's any bacteria on that seafood, you cook it to that certain temperature to kill the bacteria. If the cheese is underneath the seafood, then there's no way that the cheese is not going to be cooked to the same temperature as the seafood. So if any of that bacteria drips from the seafood, the cheese doesn't get cooked. Now it's cross-contaminated. And that's when somebody eats that cheese, that's how they can get sick.
And I think it's interesting because all meat isn't the same, because some meats need to be cooked longer than others. And that's why sometimes I'll see, oh, chicken was stored over pork, or pork was stored over chicken, and that's an issue as well.
Right, yes. So chicken always goes on the bottom, and that's because it requires the highest cooking temperature in a kitchen. So the higher the cooking temperature, the lower it goes on the shelf.
And that's advice that people can take. You know, everyone's getting ready for Thanksgiving.
Yes.
You have a lot of people coming over, and you do not want those folks to get sick. So Jessica, thank you so much for talking with us this morning. We'll get this on news4jax.com so you can learn more, and also kind of get an idea about what she offers and how other businesses certainly can benefit from it. All right, we are live in Avondale this morning. Back to you guys.